The two young lovebirds clasped their hands together as they strolled down the windy path of the campus garden, giggling as lovebirds do. That is Tayo and Bisola. They made their way to the nearest seat in the love garden. Bisola placed her head on Tayo's shoulders as she closed her eyes and said, "I love you so much, T." Tayo replied with a smile, "I love you more, baby. Thank you for finding me worthy of your love." Oh well, Tayo and Bisola were undergraduates at the university at this time. Tayo was just a regular struggling student that literally trained himself through school. He was 2 classes ahead of Bisola, and they both met and fell in love on campus. Bisola was also from an average home. Well, like all young lovers, they didn't care about finance. They didn't care about money. They were so in love and believed that they could work things out together. And they did. Tayo graduated before Bisola and went for his NYSC. After that, he started doing petty businesses. Meanwhile, Bisola also graduated from school and went on to learn tailoring. Bisola and Tayo got married eventually. It was a small wedding, the one they could afford. After their wedding, they settled into their new home. Tayo had gone into real estate, working as a land and property agent, while Bisola took her tailoring business seriously. At first, life was rough for them. Tayo would stay for many months without having sold any land or property, and the young family would depend on Bisola's meager income to survive. But despite all this, Bisola never complained. She genuinely loved Tayo and was willing to go through all that with him. She was a solid rock beside Tayo, joyfully performing her duties as a wife and always encouraging her husband. She never nagged her husband or complained about the difficulty. In their second year of marriage, they had their first child, a beautiful baby girl that they named Angela. The family was overjoyed and welcomed the baby with open arms. But soon, the reality of an extra mouth to feed hit them. Tayo was a hard worker. He slowly started making progress in the real estate business. He had a particular property he wanted to sell. It was very expensive, so it was a bit difficult to find a buyer. But Tayo did not give up. He kept searching, and one day luck smiled on him. He found a buyer for that property, and boom, Tayo made his first 5 million naira. Tayo was overjoyed. When he got the credit alert, he honestly couldn't believe his eyes. Tayo literally ran home to his wife to tell her. As he breezed into the living room, he screamed, "Baby, we are rich!" Hugging Bisola. Looking puzzled, Bisola asked, "What is it, honey? Rich? How?" Bursting with excitement, Tayo told Bisola how he eventually found a buyer for that property and made a whooping sum of 5 million naira from the deal. "Ah!" Bisola screamed excitedly. "Ah! Jehovah has answered our prayers," she said, falling to her knees. "Oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Baba," she said, thanking God. Tayo kept 1.5 million out of the money for family use and decided to invest the balance into real estate. He had a heartfelt conversation with his wife about that. "My love," Tayo said, "I think it is best we invest this money into real estate for it to multiply." Bisola said, "That's a good investment plan. But how do you intend to go about it? You know, this real estate business, Tayo replied. Just working as an agent is the basic. The real thing is in buying land and property and selling them. I could go to the places where I can get land cheap, buy and then resell, Tayo explained. Armed with this brilliant plan, Tayo went into real estate with zest. He bought some plots of land with the over 3 million naira left and left it for some months, then started reselling. Thus, Tayo diligently built a multi-million real estate empire over the years. After 4 children and hundreds of millions in the bank accounts, Tayo and Bisola were living large. They built their own house in the choicest part of town. But then, 10 years into the marriage, things started changing. Tayo started staying late into the night. He always came back home late. Oh, come on, Bis. I just had a business meeting. What's wrong with that? Was Tayo's response each time Bisola confronted him about coming back late. But, Bisola said, I am not comfortable with these late meetings anymore. Please, can't you meet with these partners of yours early in the day? Ha, Tayo replied. Oh, so you now want to control my movement, Abi? Tayo said angrily. Aren't you happy that we are much better off now? Is it not you and the kids that I'm doing all this for? Or do you want us to go back to poverty? Tayo ranted on and on. What do you even mean? Bisola retorted angrily too. Have I ever complained about money since we got married? Haven't I been content with what we have? Yes, I appreciate the wealth you are building for us, but please, not at the expense of our family. You no longer spend time with the children. Then me, you have completely relegated me to the background, Bisola said, crying. Please, Tayo, don't let this new wealth bring more harm than good to us. Please, I beg you, please. Well, as Bisola cried, Tayo looked at her long and just quietly walked out of the room. This broke Bisola's heart the more, and she cried even harder. She couldn't believe that her husband just walked out on her. Unfortunately, things got worse. Tayo didn't only stay out late. He started being absent from home for days at a time, claiming he went on business trips. But before long, news of his infidelity spread like wildfire. Friends and family members who saw him in different places with different women called Bisola each time to report him. This was too much for her. Bisola so cried that she developed high blood pressure. This wasn't the Tayo she fell in love with 20 years ago and married. How could Tayo treat her like this? She stood by him when they had nothing. She never complained or nagged. Oh, where did I go wrong? Bisola asked herself the 100th time. Do I really deserve this? God. So wealth actually revealed my husband's true character. My God. Bisola so cried, but that wouldn't help the situation. Meanwhile, Tayo was busy gallivanting all around town with all sorts of girls. He had money to waste. He threw caution to the wind and lived extravagantly. His promiscuity was really loud. He drank, partied, and had extramarital affairs while his wife suffered. Well, one day, Tayo was in a nightclub with his friends and he met this girl and became instantly attracted to her. He immediately started a relationship with the girl, and the girl's name was Judith. Few months down the line, Judith, seeing the kind of wealth Tayo had, hatched a plan to take Tayo's money. She liaised with some area boys for Tayo's kidnap. One day, after spending the night with Judith, Tayo was getting ready to travel. "Oh, sweetie, I'll miss you," Judith told Tayo. "When did you say you are traveling again?" "Ah, my baby, I'm leaving tomorrow and I'll just be gone for about 1 week," Tayo said. "Don't worry, I will get lots of goodies for you." And Tayo hugged Judith. The next day, on his way to the next city for a business meeting, Tayo was double-crossed on the road by kidnappers. They whisked him away in their own car and sped off. They blindfolded Tayo and tied his hands behind him. Tayo was terrified and was begging them, "Please, sirs, whatever you want, I'll give you the double of it. Please, just let me go. Please," Tayo cried. "Shut up there," their leader snapped at him. "Except you want me to kill you, eh? You want make I kill you?" Well, they led Tayo into the heart of a forest and into an uncompleted building there. They first beat him up mercilessly, tearing his clothes in the process. Tayo cried and wailed to no avail. At gunpoint, they commanded him to transfer all the money in his account to an account they gave him, and he did just that. They tortured him some more before letting him go. They dumped him on the side of the road, bloodied, half naked, and unconscious. Well, some good Samaritans saw him by the side of the road and took Tayo to a nearby hospital. When he regained consciousness, he requested that his wife be called for him. Meanwhile, Tayo, who had a deadly kidney disease as a result of too much drinking, was fatally wounded by all the beatings. The doctors were doing all they could to ensure that he lived. As soon as she was told, Bisola rushed down to meet him at the hospital. When she saw him, how bloodied he looked, she almost fainted. "Ah, Jesus, honey, what happened to you? What happened to you?" she asked, wide-eyed. "Who did this to you? Who did this to you? Tell me, Tayo, what happened?" Tears streamed down Bisola's cheeks. Tayo couldn't talk. He just lay there in pains, in very severe pains, with tears streaming down his cheeks. All he managed to say was, I am sorry, Bisola." Unfortunately, after days of battling to save his life, Tayo passed on. Oh, this broke Bisola. She felt so bad. She felt so wounded. This was a man she had loved for the better part of her life. Bisola wailed and cried and then buried Tayo. Bisola mourned him for a very long time, but then she had to move on with life. After a few years of mourning, Bisola sold a few of their properties to raise capital for her tailoring business. And guess what? Bisola built an international fashion brand and moved on with her life. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Well, the moral of this story is that it is wrong to turn around to fight the very same person that stood by us through thick and thin. And when you do that, or when you break your marriage covenant, there are consequences. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to this channel for more juicy stories.